This is new. We've never seen this in markets.
Today I interview Elliot of massive crypto channel EllioTrades.
My belief is that this is the first cycle where retail was actually trailing institutional order flow.
As he shares the real reason Bitcoin is going up.
And for the first time, I believe Wall Street bought lower.
Also the potential of crypto in 2024.
It's a great backdrop for the beginning of a bull run.
Is Ethereum still a good investment?
Now, the market is screaming that Ethereum is not the flavor of the cycle yet.
Also, I ask Elliot the tough questions.
What would be the reason we don't see a bull run in 2024?
Comment down below your 2024 crypto prediction. And let's start.
Has Bitcoin topped, you think?
Yeah, it's funny, right? I had a tweet on this. Everyone's calling the top, and usually at tops, not everyone's calling the top. I guess that's my experience. I think there's still quite a lot of PTSD in the charts. People are very uncomfortable with the idea of this thing just ripping. And that usually is how I play the game. I don't necessarily look at the charts. I look at sort of the table, kind of like a poker style. And what I see is that throughout 2023, I realized that once the bank term funding program came into existence in March, that was liquidity from the Fed. And if you look at the actual chart of total liquidity, when you factor in U.S. Treasuries and other cash-like equivalents, money markets, those types of things, we actually didn't see a dip in liquidity after the bank term funding program came into effect. It pretty much stagnated and grew. And now you see the Treasury, Janet Yellen, injecting liquidity like crazy into the markets. And effectively, we're back into QE. And that was what was my tip off, was you saw all the Bitcoin metrics flipping. We saw capitulation. We saw the charts reverse on the weekly. We saw all these different metrics that would indicate a new bull run. And then we saw a macro signal that, for me, that was the change. So I started buying in March 2023 and have been throughout the entire time. And what I realized throughout this period of actually buying and being bullish was that people were viscerally angry at me for being bullish, and that the bear pill had been swallowed. The macro doomer pill had been swallowed by almost everybody. And that really was where you got the Max Payne scenario. I always look to say, okay, the markets love to punish people for being overly exuberant on one side of the equation. It was pretty clear in 2023 that everyone had bought into this once in a generation, once in a lifetime, maybe once in many lifetimes, like doomer, recession, depression, whatever. And those things, they do happen, but they're notoriously very hard to predict, Like Michael Burry from The Big Short has predicted this like hundreds of times now, and he's only been right once, and he even got blown out several times on the way up here. So the one thing is that you have to prepare yourself for the fact that markets typically just go up because you have more money being printed all the time, and that these real big crashes only really happen once in a very long while. They're very hard to predict. And once I realized that almost everybody had put their money in cash, everyone had taken this, had sort of bought into this macro doomer narrative, I realized that Max Payne was up. And I know that sounds crazy. People are like, oh, Max Payne is up. That's stupid, bro. Max Payne's always down. Well, in this case, no. Everyone wanted lower and cheaper coins, that they said they did. And as the price started to rip up, people felt offsides and they started chasing the market up. And that's why we pretty much haven't had a dip since 28K, not a real one. I mean, you could say we're in a dip right now, but not really. Not in my opinion. That's not a proper dip. And so I think that it has been shown that the bears have gotten very uncomfortable, started chasing the market, and we saw bear capitulation on the way up here. And that's what we've been seeing. And that's why we haven't pretty much paused since we got into the low 30s.
So we're in the first maybe 20%, 25% of a full-on bull run. I believe time will tell. Generally speaking, what is your outlook for 2024 for crypto?
So obviously history rhymes, but it doesn't repeat. Who knows what happens? There's a probability it goes down. There's a probability it goes up. And you just have to own those probabilities. If it goes down, I might lose 70% of my stack. I might lose more, 75 to 90% of my stack. If it goes up, I could make 1,000% to 10,000%. Those are your odds, right? If you play the market right, you know how to find good coins. That's what I'm comfortable with. I've been doing this for a long time. I know I can make 10Xs. I know I can make potentially even 100Xs. But if it goes down, I could lose a massive chunk of all of my holdings. And that's just the odds that I'm comfortable with. And if you're comfortable with those odds, then you play them. And for me, what what I see is that almost everything is resembling prior cycles, maybe even more bullish than prior cycles, because we have this institutional asset flow happening with Bitcoin coming into the ETF, which we are, almost all but guaranteed is going to happen because of the court order. And so you have a different setup here coming into the year of the halving than we've ever had before. And for the first time, I believe Wall Street bought lower, right? You had this macro doomer narrative that I believe Wall Street knew wasn't going to play. I mean, these guys know more than us, right? And for the first time, I believe BlackRock and the boys all bought much lower than us. They bought that 15K washout. They were working on regulatory arbitrage. And once you saw O'Leary submit a Bitcoin ETF, if you don't think that his bags were packed at that point, and I feel like it's quite silly, right? Why would they publicly display their trade without having some preparation for that moment? So my belief is that this is the first cycle where retail was actually trailing institutional order flow. And that's why we're seeing the books go like this, is because people are not getting that typical retail sort of, flirty in and out play. So when we look at 2024, I've listed all these out a bunch of times and everybody knows this, but you have the ETF is happening, right? You have marketing from all these asset managers. That's a big deal because it changes the type of marketing from, guys with webcams like us to, institutional asset managers shoving Bitcoin down their clients' throats. Then you also have an election year. They're always bullish. And that's because the people in power like to stay in power. And one good way to do that is to say, look at the economy under me. You're richer under me than the other guy. And that is a really, really powerful tool. And we see this with Janet Yellen and the Treasury pumping money into the markets. I posted a tweet on this from Arthur Hayes. I retweeted it. US dollar liquidity has been skyrocketing alongside the markets. NASDAQ just hit an all-time high. It's a great backdrop for the beginning of a bull run. If we get a full another cycle into 2025, I hope we do. Odds are that as things start to repeat, the cycle will start to take on a life of its own. And I'm a very big believer that, betting against crypto is a far bigger risk right now than betting on it. And that's just been my position since March of 2023 is, hey, look, if this is happening again, the risk of not being allocated here is way more than the risk of losing some tokens in the market, because we all know you could lose some tokens in the market. But if this thing runs away from you again, how are you going to forgive yourself if you're a crypto native, if you've been studying this industry for years, and you don't just simply bet on the thing that you care so much about? That was my perspective. That's what I've committed myself to this industry. I'm building in this industry. And my whole perspective was, how could I not take the bet when it seems like everything's shaping up once again to do the thing it does before, but this time with institutional order flow as a foundation on Bitcoin. And that's really special. So yeah, election year halving, you have, the institutional ETF order flow. You have people off sides chasing the market. There's never been so much cash sort of on the sidelines. And finally, you now have the Fed pivot. That was the last thing. I mean, there's so many green flags. At the same time, there could be a washout at any time. I tweeted this morning, we're going to 28, then nuke. We're going to 32, then nuke. We're going to 38, then nuke. We're going to 42, then nuke. We're going to 48, then nuke. We're going to 50, then nuke. We're going to 60, then nuke. We're going to all-time high, then nuke. Maybe nobody knows. Maybe, just maybe, this is that bull run where things really rip in a new way. I don't know. I'm not taking that I'm not trading that opinion, but I'm just looking at the charts going, I've never seen it like this bullish coming into the beginning of a 2024, a halving year. It was not like this in 2020. It was not like this at all. It was not, I don't care what anybody says. 2019 was not like this. So you were there. People were abandoning altcoins. People said Bitcoin's the only coin. Bitcoin was slumping throughout the entire second half of the year. And pretty much it was a despair zone. It was a horrible place to be, crypto, in the beginning of 2020. We weren't getting a Santa rally. That's for darn sure. So to me, I've seen this run as very distinct. And I think that when you look back on this run from the lens of the future, you'll see institutional order flow below it.
BlackRock has officially put their name behind Bitcoin, but also officially put their name behind Ethereum. People wish they could have bought Bitcoin, maybe a year before BlackRock got the Bitcoin ETF approval, hopefully happening in January. How bullish are you on Ethereum into 2024, understanding this?
Yes, so I'm a big proponent of Ethereum. That said, I'm also a big proponent of just studying the markets, right? This is a game. You can play it like a sport, crypto. Once you learn how to play it, get on the field, you start making some plays, You look at what went right, what went wrong. You look at the other players on the field and what they're doing and how they're performing, and you can start adapting your own play style. Now, in the end, the market is screaming that Ethereum is not the flavor of the cycle yet. Now, of course, if the ETF conversation comes into play, which I think it will, it'll be the one after Bitcoin. That'll be the big narrative for Ethereum is institutional order flow, native yield, serious finance, whatever that means. But right now, the actual players on the field, the real excitement is not on Ethereum. And I think it has a lot to do with the narrative getting a little bit convoluted. Ethereum is scaling with a whole bunch of L2s that are often very hard, if not impossible, to differentiate their value prop, and oftentimes fairly fungible, changing from one L2 ZK or one, not ZK EVM, those are more unique, but one, roll up to another roll up is actually fairly easy. In fact, there's services you can deploy to multiple at once or switch them. It's not really rocket science to differentiate or to actually interchange these L2s. And the actual L2s are definitely getting a lot more mindshare. Then you look at things like Solana, which I was talking about in the teens and low 20s, saying, hey, look, this is the most obvious non-consensus bet because, one of the things that you learn by playing this game is the market loves a hated rally. And Solana was the perfect hated rally. But if you actually were on the field, you would know that the Solana community is very strong. They're diehard. They love it. There's great stuff being built over there. Using the chain is seamless. And so it was a pretty easy bet. Now, did I think it was going to go this crazy? I didn't think it was going to go this crazy, but I had it in my top 4 passive portfolio and I've become very active there. And what I've seen is that a lot of the activities that were happening early on Ethereum in the last run are happening right now on Solana with major DeFi applications popping off, tons of new tokens hitting the market at extreme valuations. The difference is it costs a fraction of a cent to transact on Solana. You could do $5 buys on random altcoins on Solana. And so you're having a lot of the new crowd that might not have $50 per transaction flowing there. And you're seeing a lot more distribution of early activity going to alternative chains, whereas that was almost all on Ethereum last time. So what to me is the narrative for Ethereum is going to be more institutional, more like a Bitcoin narrative. But I think it's going to lag quite a bit this cycle. Now, that said, I also love a hated rally, and Ethereum is starting to become quite hated for its underperformance. And maybe that's the opportunity.
Even though there's no more mining, so miners aren't selling anymore, and the tokenomics are different, do you think that would mean a lag? To me, I see more people bullish because of those tokenomics.
Yeah, tokenomics to me are, I'm just going to say tokenomics are kind of bullshit, right? So what makes price go up is attention and liquidity. Attention and liquidity. When there are more buyers than sellers. And that comes from as much emotion and excitement as it does from logic and tokenomics. And so there needs to be a spark right now on ETH, whereas there is a spark on a lot of other things. And so when you learn to play the game of crypto, when you learn to invest in this new world and to make money and to make plays in this market, what you want to do fundamentally is understand where the attention and liquidity is going to flow. And then you want to be there first or as early as you can. And so understanding what people find exciting, understanding what narratives could attract that attention and liquidity, have catalysts, and then getting there early. Now, that's why I'm so bullish on crypto gaming, is because to me, I've seen the investment. I see the future of crypto gaming, and I know there will be hits in that genre. And so I know at one point there'll be millions and millions, maybe hundreds of millions, maybe one day billions of players in crypto gaming. And so we are early to that. And at one point, that's going to go crazy. So by getting there early, I know I'm front running a massive wave of attention and liquidity. Now, there's other genres and other niches that, of course, this happens as well. I believe the other one will be AI. AI is going to make news stories left and right. And whether or not you're excited or not about the current stable of AI coins, well, when that happens, like we saw with the OpenAI saga, all the AI coins exploded. So whenever AI makes news in the mainstream world, we see AI coins pop off in the crypto world because attention and liquidity flood in. So if you can look at narratives and say, hey, where's the attention going to go? Where's the liquidity then going to go? That's where I can position myself. Right now, the excitement, the attention, and the liquidity are not really focused on ETH. And I think that we'll need an ETF conversation of sorts to really get that going. Again, at a certain point, ETH will play catch up, but right now it's just been a laggard. And so for right now, I just think, like, listening to the markets, you're seeing a lot more attention on exciting new tech in other places earlier in the cycle than before. And this could be a sign of evolution of the crypto space, or it could be a sign that ETH is dramatically underpriced. We'll find out.
Elliot, what would be the reason we don't see a bull run in 2024? Obviously, what would be the reason we stop getting liquidity from Janet Yellen in the markets?
Probably if you stop making video, Altcoin Daily stopping making videos would be the number one.
Never.
I would say Altcoin Daily would be if we don't get a bull run. Can I say your home address here on stream?
Please, please. I love that.
I'm gonna put out their home address and you can take it up with them because Altcoin Daily would be the reason. That's the only reason.
All right, cool. We'll be watching. Hey, final question, two final questions, but best advice for crypto investors in 2024.
Look, I think just understanding that this is the first time that people have opened their eyes to the concept of a macro bear market recession, and you have like YouTube investor class talking about recession and depression and everybody playing like they're Michael Burry, understanding that that's like a phenomenon that swept over the last few years and is still very real. If you look at across like the internet, everyone talks about like how bad it's gotten, how bad it is. This is new. We've never seen this in markets. And so understanding that like that is a positioning of people mentally. And usually, I mean, in my experience, the market looks to extract value from the most amount of people. And so it's painful for the markets to rally like crazy during that sentiment. And that's what I think we're seeing as a backdrop. We're also seeing that you want to have your sort of an open, neutral mindset towards the market. Don't have strongly held opinions. And if the market's telling you something like strength, usually strength begets strength. So looking at the NASDAQ, it's literally at all-time highs. It has never been stronger, right? You're looking at crypto. It is the best performing asset class of 2023. And you're looking at an ETF. You're looking at a lot of things that would indicate strength. And so everyone's looking for this to be a big washout where I would say, maybe just take a more neutral opinion and stop coming into it with emotion and just try to analyze data and see what is the market telling you it likes? What is the market telling you it values? And maybe, just maybe, the trend is your friend. So I'm a believer that until we see the trend get truly violated, that we have a lot of evidence that the cycle is sort of in its early stages and that 2024 is looking like it's going to be a year with a lot more liquidity and a lot more support from the macro, quote unquote, that everyone's so scared of. So maybe, just maybe, things are actually stronger than that sort of YouTube narrative would lead you to believe.
Elliot, I want to talk gaming, but actually this next one final Bitcoin question, and I want you to be real. There's a lot of moon boys out there. I like your real analysis. This is just you and me at a bar in Los Angeles, talking about if the bulls are right, realistically, how high could Bitcoin go in 2024, 2025? Best guess.
Yeah, it's a really good question. You're seeing predictions from old Sailor Boy as high as 350. You're seeing Plan B saying 500. I think that those would be very, very hard to hit, but who knows? My sort of gut is saying 120. My loins, my internal monologue is saying 120 would be a nice target. And just the reality is that I am not super focused on Bitcoin because as much as I hold a stack of Bitcoin, the reality for me is that as Bitcoin grows, other stuff outperforms it. And as Bitcoin shrinks, you don't want to hold something that's dumping like crazy either. So if it's a true bear market, in my opinion, I don't like to hold all of my coins, though I do have like a forever stack of Bitcoin. The reality for me is that in a bull market, I'm not trading mostly Bitcoin, right? I'm trading a lot of other stuff. And so I'm focused more on stuff that's going to outperform Bitcoin. And in those scenarios with Bitcoin over 100K, those things are parabolic like crazy. Like most of the coins that I focused on my channel are at or near or above 10x their original sort of bear market lows. And if we get Bitcoin at 120 or something like that, they'll probably be at least 10x from here. So, I mean, I'm not a pig. 100x for me is happy. Like I'm not trying to, I don't know what you'd want to prove beyond that. And I would think that things would be absolutely bananas throughout the ecosystem if Bitcoin even hits 100K. So probably between 80 and 120K, if I had to put like smart money on it. I think that it becomes very hard to not want to sell coins with a 6-figure Bitcoin because that would essentially attract such a retail mania. But who knows? Maybe there's a blow off top way higher. I can't predict those things once we get into those zones.